Thunder cracked across the night sky. Rain poured down in sheets so thick that it seemed as if the heavens themselves had opened. The wind howled through the trees, bending branches and rattling shutters. Inside a small cottage at the edge of a village lived a woman named Margaret. What happened to her on that stormy night would change her life forever. Margaret was known throughout the village for her kindness. She was not rich. In fact, she and her husband often struggled to make ends meet. Their cottage was small. Their clothes were simple, their meals were modest. But Margaret never complained. Every morning before sunrise, she would rise from bed and begin her work. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, mended clothes, fetched water from the well, and worked beside her husband in the fields. She always gave her best. Yet despite all her efforts, her husband, Thomas, was not a kind man. He rarely smiled. He often spoke harshly. Nothing Margaret did seemed good enough for him. If the food was hot, he complained it was too hot. If the food was cold, he complained it was too cold. If the harvest was poor, he blamed her. If the harvest was good, he took all the credit. Margaret endured it all with patience. She believed that kindness was never wasted. Years passed. The couple never had children. Their home remained quiet and lonely. Still, Margaret cared faithfully for her husband and their household. Then one night, everything changed. A terrible storm swept across the countryside. The rain hammered against the roof. The wind screamed through the darkness. Margaret had just finished cleaning the dishes when she heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. Who would be outside on such a dreadful night? She hurried to the door and opened it. Standing there was a poor traveler. His clothes were torn and filled with holes. His boots were covered in mud. His face looked tired and worn, as though he had walked for many days without rest. Water dripped from his hair. He shivered from the cold. The stranger lowered his head respectfully. "Good evening, ma'am," he said. "I've traveled far. Could you spare a little food and perhaps some water?" Margaret's heart immediately filled with compassion. "Of course," she replied. Without hesitation, she welcomed him. She hurried to the table and brought fresh bread, cheese, and a bowl of warm soup. Then she filled a cup with clean water. The traveler ate gratefully. "Thank you," he said. "You are very kind." Margaret smiled. "Storm is fierce tonight. Please come inside and stay until the rain stops." The man looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "Certainly," Margaret replied. "No one should face a storm alone." Traveler stepped inside. At that very moment, the front door burst open. Thomas had returned home. The moment he saw the stranger, his face twisted with anger. "What is this?" he shouted. Margaret stepped forward. "This poor traveler was caught in the storm. I gave him food and water." Thomas slammed his fist on the table. "You invited a stranger into my house." The traveler immediately stood. "I mean no harm, sir." But Thomas wasn't listening. "Get out," he roared. "Leave this house at once." Margaret looked at her husband in disbelief. "Thomas, it's raining terribly outside." "I don't care." The traveler quietly gathered himself. Despite the cruel treatment, he bowed politely. "Thank you for your kindness," he said to Margaret. Then he turned toward Thomas. "And thank you for your hospitality." Thomas snorted. The traveler stepped back into the storm and disappeared into the darkness. Margaret felt terrible. She watched from the window as the stranger vanished into the rain. She never forgot the sadness in his eyes. Weeks passed. Then something unexpected happened. Thomas became seriously ill. At first, it seemed like an ordinary sickness. But day after day, he grew weaker. The village doctor came. Then another doctor from a neighboring town. They tried medicines. They tried treatments. Nothing helped. His condition worsened. Soon he could no longer work. Then one cold morning, Thomas took his final breath. Margaret sat beside his bed and wept. For all his faults, he had been her husband. Now she was completely alone. The days that followed were difficult. The cottage felt empty. The silence felt heavy. Margaret worried constantly. How would she survive? Who would help her work the fields? Who would protect her each evening? She prayed for guidance. Then one evening, several weeks later, there came another knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Margaret's heart raced. She hesitated before approaching. The memory of that stormy night suddenly returned. Slowly, she opened the door and gasped. Standing before her was the king himself. His royal garments shimmered in the evening light. A magnificent cloak rested upon his shoulders. Behind him stood royal guards and servants. Margaret could hardly breathe. She immediately bowed. "Your Majesty," the king smiled warmly. Then he gently took her hand and kissed it. Margaret stared at him in complete shock. The king's eyes sparkled with recognition. "You remember a stormy night several weeks ago?" he asked. Margaret blinked. "A stormy night?" The king nodded. "A poor traveler came to your door." Suddenly, realization struck her. Her mouth fell open. "Traveler?" King smiled. "Yes, it was me." Margaret felt her knees weaken. She nearly collapsed from surprise. The king continued. "For many years I have traveled throughout my kingdom disguised as a common man. I wished to learn how my people truly treated one another." His voice softened. "That night many doors were closed in my face. People refused to help. When I came to your home, you welcomed me immediately. You gave me food. You gave me water. You offered me shelter." Tears filled Margaret's eyes. "But my husband sent you away." King nodded. "Yes, yet your kindness spoke louder than his cruelty." He paused. "When I later learned of your husband's death, I also learned of the life you had lived. Your hard work, generosity, your patience, your goodness." Margaret stood speechless. Then the king smiled. "There is something I wish to ask you." She looked up. The king took a deep breath. "Margaret, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" For a moment the world seemed to stop. Margaret could not believe what she had heard. She stared at him. Surely she was dreaming. But the king's gentle smile told her otherwise. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She nodded. "Yes." King laughed joyfully. And so preparations began immediately. Soon the entire kingdom celebrated. People traveled from distant lands to witness the wedding. The humble woman from the little cottage became queen. But despite her new title, Margaret never changed. She remained kind. She remained humble. She continued helping the poor and caring for those in need. The people loved her deeply, and the king loved her even more. Together they ruled wisely and compassionately for many years. Their kingdom prospered. Their people flourished. And Margaret never forgot the lesson that had changed her life. One act of kindness on a stormy night had opened a door she never imagined possible. Moral of the story: never underestimate the power of kindness. The people you help today may change your life tomorrow. Kindness given without expecting a reward is never wasted. Even when no one seems to notice your goodness, it is seen, remembered, and often rewarded in ways beyond your imagination. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment sharing what lesson touched your heart the most. And remember, one small act of kindness can change a life forever.